What's going on, everybody? This is the Reformation Keegan, and we have a really important comic to discuss today. And one of the things that I want to do with this comic is not give you a lot of spoilers, but give you context. So I'm going to try my best to not use as many in text examples as possible. I want to give you a deeper analysis through themes and motifs. So that's what I really want to discuss throughout this particular book. I'm really excited to talk about this one with you because it's a very vital book in a lot of ways, and I'm going to get into it. But I want to show you the cover, and I don't know if YouTube is going to flag this cover or not. So if they do, I'll redo the video eventually and just show the back cover. But today, we have Art Spiegelman's Maus, which this is part one. Actually, there is another part, and I need to get it and read it. But I want to discuss Maus today because this book has a lot of implications. There's a lot of underlying themes and motifs in this particular story. This, to me, is really an autobiography in comic form, which is a really, really cool dynamic. And I say that because multimodal literacy is, in my humble opinion, the most underappreciated form of literacy. And what multimodal literacy is, if you don't know, is the literacy through literature that has both visual and kinesthetic traits to it. So, with a comic, say for example, you are able, let's see at the beginning, you are able to read the language and the linguistics, but you can also see the image, which gives you, in essence, a double viewpoint of the narrative or the text that you are reading. So multimodal literacy accomplishes that. And I think Art Spiegelman deciding to go the multimodal route with his narrative is perfect. And it's perfect because when you have a story like this, like Maus, which has a lot of pathos and has a lot of real life implications, your reader should be able to see that and visualize that. And this is a story that, from what I have heard, has been censored. And it's been censored quite a bit because it tackles fascism. And unfortunately, right now in our world, we are living in fascism in not just one way, but in many different ways. So this book being a target of censorship proves so many arguments about what is going on today to unfortunately be correct. And one of the things that gets taken away a lot of times is our voice. But one of the things that Art Spiegelman does in this particular story, Maus, is he emphasizes voice to no end. And he does it mostly with two people. He does it with himself, and he does it with his father, Vladek. And one thing that this story does that I think is perfect is it shows the effects of post-traumatic stress disorder. Because during the narrative, when you are reading it, we have interactions with Art as a character with his father, where we can see that his father, when discussing these events, is almost short-circuiting because of this trauma. And the effects are vital to the arguments made about race and the arguments made about social economic equality. And Vladek's voice in this tells us a lot because not only is Vladek reciting events that have happened to him in the Holocaust, he's leaving us with a message. And that message is that no matter what experiences somebody has gone through, if you live enough to tell about it, that's the main success. And the main success is that Vladek survived these experiences. And another part of censorship in this story that I find intriguing is that this is a story of triumph and tragedy. And I can't rationalize why in our world today that we would want to censor this book. We don't need to relive the events of the past to understand them. We don't need, as human beings today, to go through events similar to the Holocaust and fascism to get an understanding of what it is. And a lot of other elements in our world today, yes, we do need to experience them to feel them, but this is something that we do not need to experience because we have the fortunate nature to be literate. We can read, most of us. Most of us can write. You don't need an education to write. You don't need an education to read. You don't need an education to understand things. So I think this book sends all of those messages. And another theme that I really, really enjoyed in this book is symbolism. The symbolism of the Nazis being cats and the Jewish people being mice says a lot. It says a lot because cats are hunters. Not that cats are evil, but the main trait that cats have is to hunt. I have 2 cats myself. If they have a toy that they play with, they pounce first. It's in their nature. And in the same way, in the Holocaust, the Nazis were hunters. They hunted down a race of people and slaughtered approximately 6 million of them, which the number's probably higher, but that's the reported number. The number's probably way higher than 6 million because we're not counting a lot of other factors either. But the cats being hunters in this story, which would be a symbol for the Nazis. So creative, so well done. And it tells you a lot about what you need to know about fascism and about racial equality. And the Jews being mice says a lot because they're not necessarily fully trying to retreat, but they're just trying to find freedom. There's a difference between running away and finding freedom. This is almost a pilgrimage for the Jews because they're wanderers. And mice are wanderers. And they walk and they walk and they walk and they run and they run and they run because they're trying to find something. And in this case, the Jews are trying to find freedom in an environment that does not preach freedom. It might only preach freedom for what they believe freedom is, but freedom for these mice are to not get caught in the trap. And the traps are concentration camps, because in the concentration camp, you are secluded. And also, if you go in the showers, that's the ultimate trap where you unfortunately pass on. These images are very vivid in the story. And that's another thing that Art Spiegelman really capitalizes on is vivid imagery. And that also goes in line with the multimodal nature of the story. And one of the things that the story does really well is it tells a realistic story and an authentic story in comic form. Because a lot of times when we think of comics, we think of the make-believe, we think of events that aren't realistic but entertain us for the sake of entertainment, and we think of hyperbole. In this story, there is a bit of dark humor in Vladek's retellings of the story, but this is not a make-believe story. This story is as real as it comes, and it shows the horrors of losing human rights, which, if you think about it now, a lot of people are losing their human rights. So to me, this is a book that I think anyone should read. I think anyone should read this because it's going to tell you a lot about the world today, and it's going to tell you a lot about the world of yesteryear and how really a lot of things have not changed. I think what people forget is that the Holocaust wasn't even 100 years ago. It wasn't even a century ago. It's very recent history. And I think one of the things that gets lost in discussions is that World War One and World War Two are not ancient. As a history major, which I am, I can tell you right now that the term ancient is very, very polarizing. And it's polarizing due to the fact that we don't really know what ancient is. Is ancient 2,000 years ago? Is ancient 2 million years ago? We don't really know because the term ancient is ambiguous, like a lot of other words that unfortunately people have tried to censor. We lose the ambiguities of these terms, and Maus is a very ambiguous book that actually tells one large story. And the theme of time also works very well in this story too, because we have Vladek basically getting interviewed by his son, and as he's telling the story, we go back to the time that Vladek was in the Holocaust, where we can visually see what he's enduring, what he's going through, and how he's feeling in that moment. So there's also a theme of poetic mindfulness, if I could call it that, where you have the character, the nucleus of the character is in one timeline, but in another timeline, he's speaking about these events in a flashback where we can actually see what he's going through as he's walking us through the events. So there's a lot to me that goes into this story. And I think, again, the fact that this is being censored is telling me a lot about what is happening. And you don't, if you're reading something, you don't need to lose who you are when you're reading it. Reading something can change the world, but at the same time, when you are reading creative nonfiction, one of the things, and I actually consider newspapers in news creative nonfiction, and I also classify it as creative fiction. So you have to know what themes you are looking for. You have to know what genres you are reading. And if you are reading this as a form of creative nonfiction, I think you will get the most out of it. You will get the most education, because this is a true story that is in a cartoon format. But the cartoon format is showing how human beings live in a cartoon world. They want to live in a world that just suits them and their ideals, and they will act in a way that is classified as make-believe in order to support their narrative and their story. This is the exception to that, where this book is challenging the concept of make-believe in our political and socioeconomic world. So to me, this book, I don't like to use the term classic a lot because I think it's loosely used, but to me, Maus is an absolute classic, one of the greatest comics of all time. I think it's something that people should read, not just for entertainment, but they should read it because it's giving you a first-hand experience of what can happen in our world if things go south, and what would happen if things go a wrong way. And I don't mean south in the sense of the physical south. I mean south in a colloquial manner. So a lot is said through the symbolism of the cat and mouse, because in a lot of ways, the people who are in high power, they're the cats, and regular citizens are the mice who are trying to regain their voice, trying to have freedom, and trying to exercise their rights. So really, this book is showing us a lot about human rights. So if we look at the beginning, I don't want to spoil anything, but there is a quote given by Adolf Hitler at the beginning, and it says, "The Jews are undoubtedly a race, but they are not human." So that says a lot, because race is a man-made term that was created by human beings. So really, this quote in a lot of ways is a contradiction, and it shows the level of delusion that a lot of people in office have, or people in the government have, when they are trying to convey what human rights are, because I think a lot of people don't understand what human rights truly are. And they compartmentalize people based off of race, just like how Adolf Hitler did, because this is a racially motivated text and it's derived from racially motivated events. So there's a lot to take in with Maus, in my opinion. And it's a really good story. And I highly recommend reading it. But in the meantime, I also want to say don't forget, please, to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Let me know what you think of Mouse. Let me know if you have any comments. I would love to hear what you think. I will respond to the comments. And please leave a like as well, because we're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers by the end of 2026. And if I can do that, I'll become a YouTube partner and I can put out more and better content for you going forward. So please consider subscribing, and I'll be back with more soon.